Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here and I hope you're all well. And you join me today for a new mode. Yes, this is the escort mission, the fleet convoy mission, you could call it. And, well, it's broken. It's fundamentally flawed and it doesn't work. And I don't know what Gaijin were smoking when they came up with this idea, but obviously I would like some. Basically, it pits two teams of equal strength against each other. Now, I say equal strength, and I would like to use quotation marks, because they're not equal. When I say equal strength, what I mean is the attacking team has, say, 10 ships, and the defending team has 10 ships. However, they also have all of the convoy ships, so they get about 15 to 20 ships. And some of those convoy ships are destroyers, and you don't have destroyers available to yourself as an attacker. You start to see the problem here. Now, you can only take up to 2.7 vessels, so that means many vessels are locked away, many of the better vessels. However, there are some rather overpowered vessels, some of the more modern vessels that can be used, and this is where it all falls apart, basically. It's a really flawed system, and is absolutely broken. Typical Navy, in all honesty. Basically, this mode is going to lead to the attackers losing every match, and it has done so far. As you can see, one other issue is the defenders spawn ahead of the convoy line, so they spawn in the same locations as they would in a normal game. And that means that they basically, it's just the same as any other game of naval mode. There's no difference. The only difference is you're not going to cap A, B or C. However, your team, if you're the attackers, has about a 10% chance of winning, if that. Now we'll get to the air combat in a little bit. Now, this mode in concept works brilliantly. When they first introduced it, way back in the original beta, it worked relatively not well, because basically the AI ships would sail into the salvos of torpedoes people were firing. So basically what would happen at the start of every game, everybody would launch their torpedoes towards the escorting ships and take them all out. Now just there you can see a modern artillery system, the Russian or German Albatross, basically. A similar system, I think it's not the Albatross, sorry, it's a different system. It's a 37mm automated artillery system, and basically those things are ridiculously overpowered, much like all autocannons are. If you are in any ship that uses a standard cannon system, you're screwed. The other issue, you're going up against merchant ships, which basically would need a torpedo to sink them in a PT-style boat. These boats are not big enough to sink a merchant vessel in the time that's needed. The time that's needed is basically for that ship to traverse from point A to point B, and you can see that in the red line on the map. So it doesn't take long for those ships to get there. So the match is about 8-10 minutes long maybe, and there's really no winning. You can do minor damage to these ships. Now, I think maybe if you were using a slightly higher caliber gun, maybe the 100mm guns, on things like the Flowers class, you might have a chance of actually destroying these merchant vessels, setting them on fire and things like that. You might get a chance, but you need to destroy all of them, and you can't do that in the allotted time. The other thing, as I said, is the convoy vessels. They've got destroyers, they've got they've got so much more firepower than you can bring. The other thing is the enemy team still gets the plane spawns. The same thing happens in aerial battles. Air is still a big issue for you, and you're constantly going to get spammed by planes. So you can't focus on attacking that convoy. Whereas in reality, in a convoy situation, they may have aerial coverage from long-range fighters, some heavy fighters, for instance. But if it was say a organised attack on a convoy out in the middle of nowhere, it would be hard for them to scramble air defence. They might have small amounts of air defence from the actual convoying ships. The convoy setup is frustrating as well, because on a map like this with all these hidey holes, it takes forever to actually get close to the convoy. As you can see here with the Fairmail class ships, basically I'm trying to sail towards the convoys, and it's taken me probably about 5 minutes to get to a point where I can start shooting at them. Now I'm at that point, I'm just going to get annihilated by some much more advanced ships, ships with much more advanced gun control, ships that I can't take down because I don't have autocannons. And that becomes really problematic. The next issue you'll see is actually when I get into an aircraft, because you're going to really notice what happens once I'm in an aeroplane, is the amount of anti-aircraft fire is ridiculous. Because all of those convoy ships have AA guns, of course, which means that there's even more anti-aircraft fire than normal. So, yeah, you're stuffed. As always, AI have much higher, ability to see you than any other ship. It's unbelievably broken, and for it to be put into this mode, in this state, as a sort of, well, let's try it, as a testing thing, it's beyond a joke, because it's easy to see this is broken. You could honestly just have one player look at this and go, yeah, that's not going to work, because it's not. As you can see here, the teams are evenly matched. There are even teams. And that does not work in this situation. This may be a challenge and may be fun in a PvE system where you're taking on these convoys as AI, as attackers, just going up against the AI of themselves. But going up against them in vehicles that you're controlling, you can see here I'm just getting flak already from the main convoy. Another thing as well is the amount of anti-aircraft fire from these convoys is just destroying my FPS. It's killing my computer, and I've recently actually just upgraded, so yeah, that's a really big problem still, is just the amount of stutter you get because of the amount of guns that are firing. The servers just can't process it, and it really becomes problematic. Right here, my game is just stammering so much trying to use the guns. It's just nigh on impossible. Luckily I do force him into a mistake, but of course you don't get a reward for that. But just the AA coming into me is just ridiculous. Now, I'm in a sea hurricane right now, and that would make sense as a convoy vehicle, as a ship launched convoy plane, because it was used on convoys. Not on German convoys, of course, but it was used on convoys as a method for taking out enemy fighters and enemy planes. It was basically a one and done thing. You would launch it and then ditch it in the sea. You might collect it after the battle, but generally it was just to be discarded. So you could sort of say, like, having things like a couple of hurricanes available would be good, but it just doesn't have anything to it, and this whole system is just so immensely broken and geared towards the attackers. It beggars belief. Well, it doesn't, because it's typical Gaijin logic of, well, it's broken, let's just add it. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw this come to the game as it is, because it is just broken. You've got no chance of winning as a attacker. Sorry, yeah, as an attacker. As a defender, you're just going to win constantly. And the defenders just play like attackers anyway. They're not defending the convoy, they're just playing like players will, just attacking the enemy ships. So yeah, unfortunately, the implementation of this is a huge failure. Alright guys, well, I hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry for being a little bit dour, but until next time, this is me, Screezilla, out. Bye bye.